Warm up. Up next, arm circles backward for 30 seconds. Arm circles backwards. Your arms should be straight throughout the duration of this exercise. Stand with your feet slightly apart and you're going to make large circles. You also want to try and keep your ribs down. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, arm circles forwards for 30 seconds. Arm circles forwards. You're going to stand with your feet slightly apart and your arms need to be straight as you make large circles in a forward motion. You also want to try and keep your ribs down as you're doing this. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, Bondarenkos for 30 seconds. Bondarenkos. To begin, have your hands under your shoulders. With your fingers facing forward, you're going to use your body weight leaning over your wrists. Gradually increase your range and then you're going to perform a wrist circle after each rep. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, elbow circles for 30 seconds. Elbow circles. Standing with your feet slightly apart, you're now going to make circles at your elbows. Move in one direction and then swap and rotate in the opposite direction. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, hip circles for 30 seconds. Hip circles. To begin, stand with your feet shoulder width apart. You're then going to use your pelvis to draw an imaginary circle with your hips in one direction. You're then going to swap and go the opposite way. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, squat to pike for 30 seconds. Squat to pike. Stand with your feet together. You're then going to drop into a squat, keeping your heels down. You're then going to extend your legs, straighten them into a pike position. Make sure that your knees are locked out straight when you come up to the pike. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, wrist flexion for 30 seconds. Wrist flexion. Start with your hands underneath your shoulders. You're then going to place the back of your hands onto the ground. Fingers will be facing your knees. Using your body weight, you're going to gradually increase your range by applying pressure down into your wrists. Up next, rest for 60 seconds. Workout number 2. Up next, arch, tuck pelvis for 45 seconds. Arch and tuck pelvis, laying on your back with your fingertips pointing to the roof. Your legs can be bent, but your feet will be together. You're going to continue moving between arching and tucking your pelvis. By arching, there'll be a space between your lower back and the floor. In a tuck position, your lower back will be pressed flat against the floor. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, arch, tuck pelvis for 45 seconds. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, arch, tuck pelvis for 45 seconds. Up next, rest for 60 seconds. Up next, bear walks for 45 seconds. Bear walks. Try and keep the arms straight and your legs will be bent as you travel forward. Keep the weight on your hands, core tight, and remember to go slow. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, elephant walks for 45 seconds. Elephant walks. Try and keep your arms and legs straight as you move forward through this exercise. You also want to have the weight in your hands, and you're going to move the same arm and leg together. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, bear walks for 45 seconds. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, elephant walks for 45 seconds. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, bear walks for 45 seconds. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, elephant walks for 45 seconds. Up next, rest for 60 seconds. Up next, step kick arabesque for 45 seconds. Step kick arabesque. To begin, stand up tall with your arms out to the side. Try and keep those legs nice and straight. You're going to alternate from left and right sides. Toes must be pointed, and remember to keep that core engaged. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, front support taps for 30 seconds. Front support shoulder taps. To begin, your hands will be directly under your shoulders. Your shoulders will also be in a protracted position. You're going to alternate touching each shoulder, avoiding rotation at the hips. You'll also have your toes pointed and core engaged. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, step kick arabesque for 45 seconds. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, front support taps for 30 seconds. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, step kick arabesque for 45 seconds. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, front support taps for 30 seconds. Up next, rest for 60 seconds. Up next, box tuck handstand for 30 seconds. Box tuck handstand. To do this exercise, you will need to use a box or a bench. Your wrists need to be stacked under your shoulders. Try and keep your ribs in, tuck your pelvis and engage your core. Your elbows need to be locked out straight and elevate your scapulars by pushing the floor away. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, box tuck handstand for 30 seconds. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, box tuck handstand for 30 seconds. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, box tuck handstand for 30 seconds. Up next, cool down stretches. Cool down stretches. Up next, German stretch for 30 seconds. German stretch. To begin, extend your legs out straight with your feet together. You're now going to extend your arms out behind you, retract the shoulder blades. The goal is to get your hands as close together as you can throughout the... Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, kneeling hip flexor for 30 seconds. Kneeling hip flexor. As you extend your first leg out straight, your foot should be out further in front of your knee. You want to keep your hips nice and square and press the back hip open. You're also going to try and think about pressing that hip flexor to the floor, and don't forget to breathe and relax. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, T-stretch for 30 seconds. T-stretch. To begin, lie on your stomach. You're then going to extend one arm out to the side with your wrist in line with your shoulder. Rest your head. Then using your opposite arm, you're then going to roll back onto one side, stretching the chest. Make sure you do this to both sides. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, puppy for 30 seconds. Puppy stretch. To get into this position, your hips need to be above your knees. You're then going to extend your arms out in front, keep those elbows locked straight, and then press your armpits to the floor. During this exercise, you're going to breathe deeply and relax.